I'd always wanted a child. That was fundamental. I knew that. And I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm going to wake up at the age of 50 and regret it. So it was a sort of slow filtering process, and I talked to quite a lot of people about it. I didn't do anything about it. I read about it. I had a clinical supervisor at the time who was involved in adoption through something else, and I'd spoken to him quite a lot, and he'd advised me, if you're going to do this, go down the voluntary agency, because local authority can be long-winded. So I then just Googled local voluntary adoption agencies, and Family Futures came up, and I just rang them, and I spoke immediately to a social worker there. And two things. One, she was just really warm and friendly and approachable. Two, I also realised that for me, they actually, the way they work was the same way as I'd been trained as a psychotherapist. So it just felt like a really good fit. But in terms of panel, Family Futures prepare you really well. They write a report on you, but you see that before it goes. So you know any of their concerns before you go in, which is good because panel are going to pick up on those concerns, and that way you can be able to respond to that. And it happens at Family Futures, so it happens in an environment you're comfortable in. And the social worker sat next to me, and by that point I knew the person who was taking the notes because she had been part of the reception team. Despite the anxiety, that actually they want you to adopt, they want you to pass. I had identified a child who had captured me, for want of a better expression. I'd read her profile, and my heart rate had gone up in a way that it had never done with any of the other children. And I'd actually shared that with my social worker, and we'd begun to make links with the child's social worker. And then you have to go through another panel. And this panel is slightly different in that you don't know anyone on the panel. But again, the social worker came with me. You travel to the local authority where the child is currently. And it's a very similar process. So we went along to panel. It was, again, unanimously passed. And then it was like, goodness, okay, this is really real. So I remember going home on the train and sitting in a cafe thinking, wow, this is real. This is going to happen. And again, the Family Futures social worker actually drove down on the end of my first day of meeting my now daughter to sort of basically to take me out for supper and talk about it and just check if there are any issues. So it was really, again, even that process, Family Futures were very much there. And I remember vividly that moment of actually driving up, but this time with my daughter's social worker up to the house, and driving up the drive and looking, and there was a window, and her face was peeping around the window. I remember thinking, oh Lord, that's my daughter. 10 days later, my daughter was living with me. And having Family Futures there who were able to be that step further back and available for me as much as I needed at that point, to the extent that when we were going through one particular month where my daughter wasn't sleeping at all, they were there on the end of the telephone at 10 o'clock at night if I needed it. Adoption agencies often talk about being there for the rest of the period. My experiences at Family Futures really were. They did work alongside me, and I would say to anyone, and I have said to anyone who's considering adoption, call Family Futures. My advice would be they're real, they're honest, they acknowledge what the children have gone through, and they work with you to make these adoptions work. It has been the best 3 years of my life. I cannot imagine life without my daughter. I cannot imagine life before her. I almost don't need to say I have no regrets, because it's not an issue. It's fantastic. It's life completing. It's tough, but it's worth every minute of it.